That's the theme of this entire project is I can't read because pretty much all of the problems that I had could have been solved by just reading the directions a little bit more carefully. Hi everyone! So today I have another kind of sew through kind of pattern review for you on a neat little skirt. So this pattern is Simplicity 8250. It is a 1950s vintage pattern. So today I just made the skirts. If you want to see me make the bolero, let me know and I'll probably go out and get some fabric to do that if you would like. So I combined a little bit of view A and view B. So view A has a solid simple waistband and it has pockets. View B does not have pockets and it has this kind of scalloped waistband. So I combined the two and I made a skirt with a scalloped waistband with pockets on it. So if you want to see how I kind of combined that, go ahead and keep watching. Alright, so I'm going to do a little bit of a hybrid in that I want the pockets, but I also want this kind of shaped waistband. So I'm going to do the pockets from A, but basically on the skirt from B, and I think that'll be super easy to do and combine. And it actually works out in my favor because all of the pattern pieces that I need are on this one sheet, and I don't have to unfold the second sheet, which is over there under the bottle. So yeah. Okay, so this doesn't quite fit, but I think I figured out that I'm gonna have to do something that I've never done before. So this is a one-way print fabric. So there's definitely an up and a down to it. So I think what I'm going to have to do is fold this entire thing in half longwise, cut it, and then rotate this one piece. Because what I was trying to do was get this laid out so that I could do like one piece down here, one piece, and then one piece and one piece, but that doesn't quite fit. But if I scooch this all the way over here and scooch this all the way over here, I can make it work. Barely, because I'm cutting it out on size 18 and not the 24, which is the biggest size. I can barely get it to fit, and I should have enough fabric left over to also cut out all of the waistband pieces and pocket pieces as well. I'm going to prioritize these in the waistband, and if I don't get the pockets cut out, I'll find something else in my stash to do it instead. So here's kind of what the layout looks like. So I wound up using pieces 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7. So these two pieces, which are 6 and 7, I'm gonna have to cut out, then cut them out again because I need 4 fabric. Everything else you just need 2. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this cut out, and I am going to use my pinking shears, and I'm gonna finish just by pinking all the edges because your girl is exercising, your girl is eating better, but your girl is still gaining weight. So your girl is not happy. And I'm actively trying to lose weight, but I'm gaining it instead. So I know I'm going to have to adjust this skirt at some point in the relatively near future. I'm just not sure which way I'm going to have to adjust it. I don't know if I'm going to have to let it out or take it in. But either way, pinking the edges and leaving the edges kind of open and not raw, but kind of raw, makes it a lot easier to make alterations later on. Okay, so step 1 is to take piece 1 and fold this over. So the quickest way, I think we fold on the fold line and not fold to the fold line. That seems to make sense. If it doesn't match up later, I know this is where I went wrong. But so I learned this from my mom. The quickest and easiest way to match up fold lines, if you're doing a straight line and you don't feel like getting out your marking pen or anything, just make a quick notch right here, just cut in right on this fold line on both sides, and then if it's a straight line you should be able to just fold it and press it and it'll go super easy. So you're going to do both number 1 pieces, not just the one that's going to get lapped in front. So you lap, or you fold, and I'm going to fold and I'm going to press and get that done on both pieces real quick, and then come back. So while I was at my iron, I jumped ahead and I decided to do all my interfacing real quick. And the interfacing goes on the outer edge, so the visible side of the waistband. So I went ahead and picked whichever ones had the nicer swan placement. You see this one isn't as nice as that, yeah. So I just went ahead and did that. So now I'm gonna go move on to the next. All right, so now I'm going to lap the right panel over the left panel, and that's the right as if you were wearing the skirt, not the right when you're looking at it. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and marked with a line of pins the center front that was listed on the pattern on both sides. So I'm going to match up these and pin it in place. Then I'm going to take it over my machine and start sewing from the top edge all the way down along that edge until I get to about here, about 3 inches before the edge. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then I'm probably going to take all of these skirt panels and give them a good iron while they're still flat, and it's going to be easy to do so. So the front section is sewn together. My only wish is I wish I had more fabric so my poor swan's faces wouldn't all get cut off when I folded everything over, but that's okay. That's not the end of the world. And I thought about lapping the other side on top, but it just looked better to do it this way. So next step, step 3, I have the back sections. So I'm about to pin these together. This is the center back seam. And you can see here when I cut it out, I caught a little bit of the selvage, but that's okay because that gets caught up in the seam and it won't be seen. So here is the triangle notch where the zipper is supposed to go, so I'm going to stitch. It says to stitch from the bottom to the top, but I was always taught that you start from top to bottom because that's, you know, if you have any extra gathering or easing, or if the bias kind of settles out, you want it to settle down in the hem because then it's easier to hide and trim off and fix later in the hem. So I'm going to start sewing up here by the notch, sew all the way down. And then I'm going to attach the front to the back at the center seams and then just sew all the way straight down those. And then from there, we're going to jump from view A to view B and do all the waistband stuff and then jump back to view A to do the pockets. Alright, so the main body of the skirt is sewn together. I went ahead and pressed those open, so while that's setting, we're skipping ahead to skirt B. We're going to do step 1 in the first part of step 2, which is super simple. All you do is just pin the front section to the back section of the both the interfaced section and the lining section, and you just stitch that down right there. Super easy. It takes, I don't know, 45 seconds. Okay, so now the other part of part 2 with right sides together. It wants you to stitch this back section with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then this top edge with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So again, that's 1/2 inch here and 5/8 of an inch here. And once you go all around and do that, and then you're going to clip the corners and notch the curve and then turn it right side out. Also, the directions never explicitly tell you to press open all of your seams, but if you look at the diagram, especially up here, like the seams are very clearly pressed open, so just go ahead and make a habit of doing that. Okay, next step is to press and then understitch. So what's going to happen is you press everything away from the garment. So basically you want to make sure that the seam allowance gets pressed this way, and you're going to pull the lining out and you're going to kind of press it together. And then you're going to understitch, which means you're going to flip this over after you press it, and you're going to stitch super, super close to this seam. To make sure that the lining kind of gets anchored to the seam allowance, so that when you turn it over in the next step, the seam allowance kind of stays where it's supposed to and doesn't slide around on you. Okay, so the understitching was a giant pain. So just go slowly, get like right up on your machine so you can get a really good look at what's going on. And it's really just to hold stuff in place, so I didn't even get into this corner. My machine just couldn't do it. But as long as you get like the majority of the piece you're trying to get done sewn down, it'll be fine. So now what I'm going to do is flip this and press this, and then on each side you're going to take the thinner side, the side without the interfacing, and press it inwards 5/8 of an inch so that you can get it ready for getting pinned onto the skirt, which is going to be the next step. So I totally missed back in step 3 where you're supposed to stitch 1/2 inch from the upper edge of the skirt. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and then immediately after that I'm going to clip the skirt to the stitching along the upper curved edges, and then I'm going to put on the waistband pieces. Okay, so looking back, so the words in the pictures don't exactly match up, and I see now what was supposed to happen. So on step 2 of skirt A, it tells you you're supposed to sew from... Oh, okay, I see what happened now. So on skirt A, you're supposed to start at the top because the waistband just is one solid piece, but on skirt B, you're supposed to actually start sewing this front seam a couple inches already downward so that when you had to go do the waistband later, it's so much easier to lap it. So now I see that I actually have to take this seam, this center front seam out and undo that for not a whole lot, maybe like 2 or 3 inches. So that's something that I did not catch on skirt B, because I think skirt B just tells you sew exactly as you did for seam. Yay. Oh, okay, there it is. See steps 1 through 3 for skirt A, top stitching from 3/4 of an inch below upper edge. So that was my mistake. Kitten, did you steal something from my trash? No. Okay, I gotta take. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna wait till tomorrow to do the zipper because it's 1:30 in the morning and I need like afternoon brain Sam and not 1:30 in the morning brain Sam to figure out how to do the zipper. Because I think it's a lapped zipper again, which I've only done once before, so I need an actual brain for that. So I'm going to skip ahead and work on the pockets, which are down here. So let me sit down and explain how I'm going to do that, because I'm reading through and it seems kind of complicated, but I think I can explain it better than the directions can. Okay, so what's going to happen is you're going to fold this over on the fold line to here. Then you're going to take this basting, or not this basting, this facing piece, and you're going to sew it to like the hem of this. So you're going to sew it like this, just to there. Then you're going to press it open. Then you're going to sew all the way around this outer edge. And then you're going to kind of flip it back right side out. Alright, so here's how the pockets should look when you're done with them. So after you stitch these 2 seams, you're going to kind of refold on this press. You're going to press them open, and then when you press these open, you're also going to fold this edge in and give that a good press. So now the next step is to sew all along this outer curve, and then when that's done, you're going to notch and then turn everything right side out. Alright, here are the pockets all done and ironed. Here's what they look like on the other side. Now the directions don't say anything about like stitching this edge down, which makes me think that either, you know, using some double-sided interfacing would be better. So this gets done by hand, and this I'm definitely going to do by hand so I can do really tiny stitches and make them look invisible, because it would look kind of weird to have just this line of stitching right here. But since the skirt front has that huge line of like visible top stitching, and that's a huge design feature, I feel like it might not look that awful to have 2 rows of stitching here, like one closer here and then one to the edge, and that's the one that like actually secures the skirt on. Because I don't know, to me it seems like having this extra flap in a pocket would just get annoying real quick. And this is sheer weight interfacing. This is the lightest interfacing I ever used. I only have it because it was a remnant. But like when you're putting your hand in or you're something in, like it seems something would get caught in here really easy if this wasn't tacked down. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do a really wide, this is probably what, 1.5 inch stitch just all around here to get this nice and flat so that when I stitch this on, it'll make my hand slide right over it. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to stitch this down by hand. And while I have my hand needle and thread out, I'm also going to come back and tack this down by hand real quick. So I'm going to get that done and then come back. Okay, so here I have the skirt just kind of loosely pinned on. I cut it out on the size 18 because my waist was 32 inches last night. Not happy about that. But I probably could have gone down to the size 16 because there's like a little bit of extra in the back, but not a whole lot. I'm going to see if that changes when I put the zipper in. So I went ahead and I stitched the waistband down on the inside by hand. I'm going to wait until after I get the zipper on to tack this down because I might need to angle it a little bit to get the fit right, because it does kind of gape out a little bit. Up top, which that's okay. I'm not too upset about that. That's little nitpicky stuff that can be fixed with this. And then I might go ahead and add a hook and eye to the back, even though they don't have one on view B, they only have one on view A. So yeah, I might go ahead and just add a quick little hook and eye so that I can, you know, fix it a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the zipper now, and then once I get the zipper in, I'm probably gonna try this on with my petticoat to see how I feel about the hem, because I don't know. It seems a little long to me. The pattern said it only had a 5/8 of an inch hem allowed, so I might go a little bit bigger than that because I have some short legs for being as tall as I am. Alright, so the zipper is in, and I definitely could have gone down a size. It's pretty big, but that's okay. I can fix that with some hooks and eyes in different places. So now I'm going to skip ahead and do the pockets. So I'm going to grab the pattern pieces for the front and also for the pocket so that I can go look at some markings on them. Okay, so they're hard to see, but I put some pins in where the dots are on the pattern piece. Now I forgot that I sewed, and so that kind of took the seam allowance, and I was looking at the directions. So these dots and all should be on this seam. So that's easy, just, you know, mentally make that note. So with the pockets, the top and the bottom wind up being these two circles on the outside. So you match up with there, over there, and then you match up this one, or this circle, and then this circle to these inner ones, and that's going to be the opening of the pocket. So this is just going to get matched up and stitched on as close as you can. It didn't turn out perfect because I didn't have exactly perfectly a 5/8 seam allowance. So this gets matched up and then sewn on both sides all around here, and then up to this mark right here. And then you'll have your pocket. So here's the skirt, mostly finished. It has the pockets in it now, and I went ahead and put a hook and bar in the back that I had left over. So here it is on its own. I'm going to slip a petticoat on real quick to see how that changes the shape and see if I like it or not. Okay, so here it is with the petticoat. I like the volume it gives it. I just think, I don't know, I think the skirt needs a little bit more actual fabric in it to make a petticoat work properly. I don't know. I just like the look of skirts that have, like, I like when the volume of the skirt comes from having just so much extra fabric in the skirt and it's not obviously a petticoat underneath. So I haven't decided yet if I want to do a top stitched hem or a hand stitched hem, because there's all this like top stitching all the rest of the dress, so I don't think it would look bad to do it top stitched. I'm just not entirely sure it'll look good. So I'm gonna have a cup of tea, think that over, let this hang for maybe another hour or two, since the pockets do add a little bit of weight and make it hang a little differently. So I'm gonna let this settle out for a little bit, and then think on what I want to do with the hem and go ahead and do that. I have decided, mostly out of laziness, I will be doing the hem by machine. So I'm going to turn this up 5/8 of an inch, and then I'm going to turn it up another 5/8 of an inch to get a nice rolled hem all the way around. And then I'm going to pin that, press that, and then take it to my machine, and then that will be it, and then the skirt will be done. And here it is, 100% finished, no petticoat. I went ahead and machine stitched the hem, and yeah, this is what I wound up with. Overall, I think this is a very good pattern. The directions were a little confusing at times, just the way that they were worded, but the pattern is super great. I didn't see anything on the pattern pieces about ease and exactly how much ease is in here, but yeah, I'd say this is pretty true to size. I didn't really do anything crazy and take stuff in or let stuff out. The only thing I did was add the hook and bar in the back, and that kind of tightened it up, that extra inch or two that I needed. So yeah, this is what I'm left with. I'll try to get some nice photos taken of it in the next day or two. I have a shirt that I started that I'm going to finish to wear with this. Yeah, so I'm very pleased with how this turned out. I think the pattern works out well. I think the print is also super, super cute, and I like how this has pockets. Where's my phone? And the pockets are big enough for my phone. So that's awesome. Yeah, I really like this, and I like how it turned out. Alright, so now that I have finished my skirt completely, 100%, I really like how it turned out. I think it's super cute. I'm really proud of how it turned out. A couple things to note when you're going into this pattern. One is that at the waistband up here, it gets kind of treated differently based on which waistband you're doing. So if you're doing the simple A waistband, you just start sewing at the top and go all the way down. If you're doing the B waistband, you want to leave a little bit of a gap in between before you start sewing this center pleat. And that's just so it's a lot easier to do this kind of scalloped waistband where you have to kind of fold it over itself, if that makes sense. It's easy to do when it's not attached at the top. So also, they didn't really go into a whole lot of detail about how to actually come back and finish this top waistband, because if you look really closely, I have no idea if my camera's going to focus. If you look really closely, it doesn't sit completely right, that top like ½ inch. And that was something that I noticed on my own because I went and hand stitched and hand tacked that seam down at the very top because I thought it would be easier than doing it by machine. And I just can't get it to lay right. I'm not too worried about it because the pattern of the skirt is so busy that it's not really visible. But if you're using something a lot simpler and that's going to show your mistakes, just, you know, beware of that. Another thing is, this is just kind of a limitation with all patterns, is that they all have their kind of own little jargon and their own little ways to describe things. So for example, in this one, for the fold on the lapped edge, there was a fold line. Most instructions will tell you either fold on the fold line or fold to the fold line. I think this one just said like fold using the fold line or something. So just kind of beware. That is a thing that might get a little bit confusing. Also the pockets, they didn't really talk about finishing the facing for the pockets or doing anything to stop you from, you know, getting your hand caught in the facing, which isn't that big of a deal. But if you're carrying around smaller things, like sometimes when I'm sewing, I'll use like my small scissors and I'll put those in my pockets, or not really pins, but I'll have like bobbins, or, you know, if you have coins that you need to shove in your pockets, sometimes those might get caught in between the facing and it'll get a little hard to get out. So that's why I did a second line of stitching around the facing. What else? I don't know if it just wasn't on the skirt pattern pieces, but I didn't see anything anywhere on the pattern pieces or in the directions about ease. Now, I made this skirt on a size 18 because when I measured my waist, which the waist is really the only measurement you actually need for the skirt, the hips are free and everything else is free. But the waist, when I measured, was a size 32, which corresponds down to a size 18, so that's what I cut out on, and I did pretty good about cutting out exactly on the line. I didn't add any sort of seam allowance, and I sewed with 5/8 of an inch seam allowance all around except for that one part where they wanted a ½ inch. So this came out pretty true to size, which I'm really happy about. I probably could have gone down to a size 16 because now that I'm not super bloated, and now that I'm not in a time of the month where I'm super bloated all the time, it is a little bit big. But that's kind of a really simple fix. All I really would have to do is just add in another hook to my hook and eye. No, add in another eye to my hooks and eyes, which also view B is to finish up the back just has you install the zipper all the way up, and view A has you stop at the waistband. So it's not that big of a difference, but you will definitely need a longer zipper for view B in that case. I only had a 7-inch zipper because that's what I had lying around, and I definitely needed the hooks and eyes at the back. Also, the waistband and the actual skirt didn't match up perfectly so that I had a nice flush edge. Yeah, here's a decent amount of like the waistband sticking out on either one. Overall, at the end of the day, I really like this pattern. I think it's really beginner friendly. Not like beginner, but if you're a beginner and you want to try to challenge yourself a little bit and kind of take baby steps to becoming a more advanced sewer, this is definitely a step up from beginner, but it's super easy. Just follow the directions, read the directions, and you'll have a really easy time with it. I think it's a really well-made pattern. Everything lined up the way it was supposed to. Everything matched up the way it's supposed to. It's very true to size. If I had to guess an ease, it maybe has an inch of ease in it. So this is pretty standard. This is really good. Highly recommend. I really liked my time with this skirt. So yeah, if you have any other patterns that you'd like to see me make, if you have any other patterns that you want to see me try to sew through so that I can go and work out the kinks and figure everything out before you do, go ahead and let me know. Let me know in the comments below. Which also, new kind of exciting news, I started myself a sewing Instagram. I am at Thread and Needlefish, because, you know, thread and needlefish. My original idea was gonna be like stitch these, as in stitch, like sewing, and then ichthyes, like ichthyes, chondrichthyes, osteichthyes, but that was a little bit that was a little bit more obscure and harder to say, so I came up with thread and needlefish instead. So I thought that was super cute. So if you want to, go ahead and give me a follow. You'll see a whole bunch of behind the scenes stuff. You'll see progress shots, works in progress, things that might not make it to YouTube. Also, I have a marine biology background, so I talk about the animals that I care for at work. Sometimes I do some really neat fish stuff and turtle stuff. So if you are interested in any of that, go ahead, give me a follow. I'd really appreciate it. Like and subscribe, because I'm a YouTuber and I have to say that for some reason. I don't know. Do what you want. So yeah, if you have any other comments, questions, or suggestions, go ahead and leave them down below, and I'll see you in the next one. How much do you want to bet that there's a kitten right on the other side of this door, betrayed that I didn't take her outside with me? I guess. Even though you were bad. You're chasing lizards, you know you're not supposed to do that. Brat.